welcome to the Liverpool Community Podcast. I'm your host, Chase Johnson Lynch, and we're here at the Big Condo Studios. And I mean, like right now, this is like, I wouldn't say old home week, but this is like, wow, it's taking me way, way back. Because a lot of people don't realize that I've been here for over 20 years here in Liverpool. And one of the first people that I met is still running around today, making waves, making moves, and I'm glad I finally got him in the chair, joining me here in the studio. I'm here with Yaw Owusu. How you doing, Yaw?
I'm all right. You're making it sound like it was hard. You DM me and went, "Will you do this thing?" And I said, "Yeah." Because you're chasing it. You're the only person I know in Liverpool, or you only got to refer to me with the first name.
That's true.
Do you know
This
what I
is
mean?
indeed
So
true. But I mean, like, you're a man of many titles and everything. We're like, even when you just passed me off your bio, I'm like creative consultant, playmaker group. I mean, like, when I knew you, it's like I knew you when you were young, and now I'm like, whoa,
is
and
that
everything
is
like
that
that.
is that a sidearm? Like, is that a long time ago? I'm still quite
It is
young,
a,
aren't I? In the
you are
generation
younger than
thing.
me. That is true. But I mean, like, I just wanted to try and compliment you, Yao, about how effective you've been in the city. I know you don't like compliments and everything, but like, I mean, how effective you've been because we're going to
No,
go through the whole list and stuff like that. But
no, but I
first,
would say, yeah, we do go back. I think when we met was probably 2000 and
three, I believe.
no, it would have been after that because I finished university in 2004. Um, So it would have been 2005 when we started there. Beats
Yeah.
2006. So yeah, me and Chase go back nearly 2 decades. It's scary, isn't it?
Now you have to realize that I got this on tape because if you looked online, you would never know that we know each other. No, I'm kidding. No, we did. We did used
Yeah,
to
yeah.
do a lot of running around because your cousin actually is very well known artist in the city, Young Kof, or
Yeah,
now
yeah.
just
Cove.
Kof,
Yeah, yeah.
and everything. But like this is when I was like, okay, listen, I'm gonna start this management thing, and then when I started this management thing with my cousin, then I'm gonna start to gather other artists and Urbeatz.
Well, yeah. Well, the way it actually began, it was well more organic than that. So it wasn't like I'd done a university degree in something that's got nothing to do with music, and then I came out and Kove's my cousin. He'd started university up north, so he was in London. He was based in London,
Yeah.
and he came up north to go to university. And his mum was like, my auntie was like, he's got some shows. Will you help him organise them? So I'd never thought about music as a career or anything, and I didn't know what it would look like as a career. I'd just been a consumer at that point, and
Wow.
buying the Source, Double XL, Hip Hop Connection,
You
MTV
were like a
Raps, all
sponge,
that. Yeah,
though.
a sponge. I was soaking it all up, and I'll never. And I'd already at that point, studied and read lots of books about music and music culture, so I could talk about how soul music aligned with the civil rights and how understood the role of even people like Bob Dylan in all that as
Yeah.
well, not just the Sam Cookes of the world. So I was already, and obviously hip hop. I was a big hip hop lover, so understood the kind of cultural impact of music. But I hadn't nowhere on the lines as someone said there's a role for people like you within the music industry. So what happened was, Kof came up, wanted to do some shows. He was already recording tracks, so I was in the studio with Kof, and he's recording records, and I'm just giving my input on it. So I don't know about A&R, management, whatever. I just know that I'm there. He's my cousin. We're tight, we're tight anyway.
Yeah, yeah.
So it was like, I was just feeding in and giving him some thoughts. And then it was like, well, what are we going to do? Okay, let's do some CDs. We'll record this. We'll go to Aldi. We'll get some CDs. Let's duplicate them. Okay, how are we going to get art? Oh, I know my friend. He does design. He also said we should do T-shirts. Let's screen print some T-shirts. So then we
Yeah.
done the show. And we sold all the CDs and we sold all the T-shirts, and people were really interested in his music. So then he got another show. So we done more CDs and we done more T-shirts. So I'm not even thinking this is labeled, distributed, none of that. And so I just learned on the go. And the more and more things we done during that first summer, the more people came to us and wanted to align with us. So then we ended up with the Younger Mob, the Jenna Watts, et cetera, et cetera. So we ended up with this entity. And by default, because I haven't really got a musical bone in my body in that sense of a creative. Like, I was the organizer and Kof was the creative. So, we just got it moving, and then, with the help of my older brother and my cousin, we got a little place on Slater Street in town, And then we just build it. And then, around that time when we started putting out our first kind of content, because we put the music out, and quickly we went round all the places in Liverpool to get support. The Juice FMs, what people know as Capital now, Juice FMs, the BBC Merseyside, the Radio City, etc. Even the people who were already within like black music at the time, the Spycatcher, but we didn't really get the support for what we were doing, because even though black music as a genre generally was supported, like in the clubs, you'd have R&B, you'd have hip hop, MTV bases on, so people are consuming it. Homegrown music of that persuasion was not really supported, so we were doing something
kind
that
of like
was
the
quite...
old days when Sugardeans.
But it was totally not supported, and you got to bear in mind it was like the stuff in London, it was bubbling, and you might have had like Pow just charting and stuff like that, but it wasn't. And obviously So sold a couple of years before, but it wasn't like the way it is now. So we essentially ended up having to just create what was not here. So we were like, okay, no one will book us for a show, we'll create our own show. No one's playing us on radio, we'll create our own radio show. So we had this online radio show every Friday that got the eye of One Extra. So we ended up with a BBC Radio One Extra show. Do you know what I mean?
That was
and then 6 in the morning, 6 till 8 in the morning. But then that opened us up to the whole of One Extra. So all of a sudden because we went down, we didn't pre-record it, we went down to London and we're in the building. So we met everyone. And then, strangely enough, one of the people I met, who was the exec, Ray Paul, ended up being my business partner in the Playmaker group. So we were just creating whatever. Oh no, we want to do clothes. We haven't got clothes. Let's create our own clothes. So we found this guy in London called Funk West. We created a brand. So we bought a stack of them, put all the artists in it, and then sold them. So we were just literally doing whatever we could do to not create a business, but to create a model whereby we were the front edge of something, but we weren't reliant on anyone. Yeah. So then that's how it came. And obviously people were coming to us like, oh, shoot music videos, we shoot music videos with us. And we had that conversation with you, and we'd done a couple of quite interesting pieces. And then we ended up working together, because we were like, well, people were coming to us then saying, well, I want what you've got.
Yeah.
So then we have photography and design with Anton Rodriguez, who ended up going, obviously the work he does now is absolutely amazing. Yeah. Later on, David Zinyama, people know all the manipulations he started doing online, but before that he was doing graphic design, bits and bobs for us. So it was it was just quite finger, but it was always like Kof the creative and me more of the business type.
Well, like, not to skip over that whole music video period, just because it's about me. But like the thing about it is like, no, it was organic, and in creating videos and stuff like that, because Kof was so talented in the aspect where it's like, it wasn't just making a video, like whether you call it small video, videos with no money or whatever, something like that, because those videos actually made it onto, MTV.
Well, that's that's the thing. You think about some of the ones.
Channel U.
Yeah.
I remember like calling each other, talking like, man, it's on Channel U right now. The videos on it.
You remember Fresh?
Yeah.
And we done it round there with James Class, and we done the video, and that was one of the biggest videos on Channel U, Channel AKA. People who the significance of Channel U AKA might not be the same now, but at the time, for somebody not from London to be in rotation like that was nuts. No promo budget, no nothing.
What's the one that went on MTV? The one with all the backgrounds. I'm old. So
we had a couple. We had You Must Be Done, which Kof done himself. Where Did We Go Wrong? Obviously, which was Anthony Walker tribute. That was was a big one. Even what I was watching the other day, I stumbled across Pyro's Streets of Liverpool. Yeah. Which is still on YouTube, which was just a wonderful, simple video. But like, it was just at that time. It was we just had to be creative and make and be fearless, because there was no model and there was really no support, and there was no.
He was the only artist that was doing it at the time, wasn't he? That was
no. You know what?
TV was chasing.
Yeah, I think Kof was working at a higher level, but Kof bought into the way we were thinking about doing stuff. Do you get what I'm saying? So like, there was loads of stuff going around the city, do you know what I mean? And there was loads of active people, obviously, I'm on this thing, Roisy, and, there was it was an artist called Kane, and there was a couple of that, like, there was stuff all around the city that was going on. I think we came out with a brand first and foremost. Yeah. So we came out of this Urbeatz thing. I'll be in places where people talk about Urbeatz, and I'll be sat there, and they wouldn't know that we were Urbeatz. It was a very odd thing. And because of the way we worked, we went further, faster. So where people were like, they wanted to make music and put it out, my thing was like, I want to get more people listening to it. So when the radio stations didn't listen to us, like Kof got his first play on Radio 1. Do you get what I'm saying? Kof at one point had more playlisted records on One Extra than Dizzy Rascal and Wiley.
Yeah.
Like that's unheard of. And because of that though, we circumvented the normal pathways. So like we had the entry point. By doing the show on One Extra, we knew every single person behind the like.
Yeah.
Normally, you want to get played on radio, you don't know who's the producer, who's the thing. Like we knew everyone. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so we had that way through, and then because we were also like we were connecting with young people, schools and youth clubs were getting us in. So we had the direct route to engaging with young people. But usually we were paid. There were schools going, come and do a workshop, come and do this. So we're going into the school, touching 1,500 kids in a school. Oh, we'll do a lunchtime performance for you for free. Kof would do a performance, then he's got 1,500 kids that love him. So we like our model was this, and this is all pre 2007.
Well,
do you know what I mean?
Pre-internet, like
pre-internet, yeah. We had MySpace was around, Bebo and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean?
MySpace,
and BlackBerry Messenger, so like a lot, and MSN Messenger. So things were shit. Like, where did we go wrong that Kof had? I swear to you now, if that was today, that would chart.
Yeah,
because every kid had it on the phone.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? Whether they labeled it Anthony Walker tribute or whatever they could, like, it was a bona fide. Like he was Kof. That song was so big. That song.
We had a lot of guest cameos in there.
Oh yeah.
From It's Dynamite to
Roll Deep. Yeah. And obviously that was a massive song. And again, the way it worked, it was organic. Kof was sat there, and when Anthony died, and I knew Anthony briefly because I used to coach him basketball on Saturdays. So we didn't know the family, but Kof felt that thing, and he wrote it from his perspective. And then, well, he told the story. And then he wrote a bit from his perspective. So he done it, recorded it. And I was like, we need to send to the family.
Yeah.
Just to say, look, we're doing this. We don't want to be... And obviously they embraced it. And Dominique, who I still do work with to this day, they were just warm on it. And then obviously we shot the video. I think B. Freeman ended up being producer and went to film festivals and all that. And it also was on TV. And I remember Lupe Fiasco was one of the artists who came over for the event and was like, I want to jump on that. Little did we know who he was, so we just didn't listen to him. Bad move, because the song with Kanye West came out like a week later and was like the top record in the world. But it was really organic. But I'm saying the way we work, because we were thinking about music, as I said before, as a cultural thing.
Yeah.
It wasn't like we're hip hop or this is this and we're not there. We want to be part of it all. And you know, when we got to 2007, being that Liverpool was capital culture 2008, and we were left out of all those celebrations. It was a fight to get onto Matthew Street for Kof. And when he'd done it, we had to deal with all kinds of challenges. The Hub Festival, which was the urban festival, urban culture festival, it was a fight for him to get onto that. But then when he eventually got it, I think Kof opened the doors. And it's crazy to me now, because Kof is, you know, he's got a studio, go play, and he's doing all this great work. And so many artists go through there, and everyone respects him, without a doubt. But a lot of them don't even know what he did. Before that, they know this Kof who's amazing at making music and whatever, but they don't know Kof who like literally blew down every door and was like the guy.
And he went to Glastonbury.
He done Glasgow. He done. Kof was touring. Kof was on. He had his music on Love and Hip Hop in the States, 2 records on it. Yeah. He toured the whole of Europe. The stuff he done at that time. Like, I don't think any artist from this city's done power. And if the numbers were such. If we had a way to do someone can put like A-Star, who I think's really good, he can put a record out and maybe gets 1 million streams, for instance. Yeah. The Kof equivalent of that at the time, Kof would be on 10 million streams. Kof would be like, some of these artists, like the JK from Birmingham or some people like that we look to and go, oh, they're not in London, or Bugsy Malone, they're not in London, look what they've done. Kof was the equivalent of that. He's just at a time when it wasn't, numbers weren't.
No, it was like prehistory.
Yeah.
You know, now, this is kind of like an Abbott and Costello story in a way, because, I mean, we are here talking to you, and it's like you talked about how like you didn't have any experience when you started out, but I mean, obviously, Kof, you were a strong component to that in what was going on with his career at the time. But you mentioned, Anthony Walker Foundation. You also mentioned the Manchester Street Festival. So to me, I thought that was where things changed for you into Yaw stepping out. Can you tell me about that Matthew Street Festival story?
Well, I actually think I think that first phase, and I always like to think of things in like 7 years, right? So I feel like that first phase, that 2004 to 2011, the tail end of it, Wiley, the UK grime artist pioneer, came to Liverpool, and Wiley had moved around the country this time, and he just, he'd had Rolex, he had a couple of top 5 hits at the time, and for the culture, he's massive. But in music, he was there. Do you know what I mean? He charted, so he was mainstream as far as that. But Wiley being the amazing creativity, he would just go anywhere to find creativity. So he'd move to Birmingham, he'd move to Manchester, and then from Manchester, he was coming to Liverpool a bit, and he was going back and forth. And the people he was meeting and hearing about was like, oh, you got to work with Cove, you got to work with Janice, you got to work with this. They were all connected to me in some way, whether I was managing, putting out the music or whatever. So eventually, me and him sat down, and I just remember, like, you got to figure, this is like Twitter days where it's mad if somebody's on there who's a celebrity or do. So this was like 2010, and I remember him talking about this label he was setting up, A-List, and he was combining all these artists like J2K and Shola Hammer and Sadie Hammer and Manga and all these artists that were like well respected in London, but then also he had Riggs from Manchester, and he was like, I've got this thing and it's a superpower and it's like the A-list and it's this, that, and the other, and he built it up, and everyone was talking about it. It was massive news.
Yeah.
And he was like, I'm going to pick a label manager. And I remember I was sitting at home like, who the hell is this? Who's the hell? And he was like, it's Mr. 100, which was my tag at the time, Yaw Owusu. He's going to run the label. So what he done, so this is pre-2013, pre me getting involved in LIMF. He put me out as, there's this guy you all may not know about, or there's some people that you know about. So like, obviously there's people in the industry I knew already who had done stuff with Kof. But I mean, it was like, do you know what I mean? He's a big guy. He's an icon at this point. He's an icon, and he's winning. So then he put me in that position. So for that like 12 to 18 month period, even though it was a manic ride, and we actually didn't do a proper official release, because if everyone remembers, while he released all the music we had for the label and the zip files, he released 11 zip files, which kind of broke the internet. He released everyone's music. That was all the label music. But anyway, but it put me in that space. And then around the same time, Ray Paul, who I mentioned before, who was one of the execs who started One Extra, he'd gone to Radio 1, he'd left Radio 1 after doing some incredible work there. He started his own organisation called the Playmaker Group. So around the Wiley time, he wants the, so I was working with Wiley, but I was doing it as a consultancy, I suppose. And then I had a magazine called Mesh Culture Magazine. We're still doing all the Urbeatz stuff. You know, Kof was working on kind of new comeback material where he was singing, but he just done, club chart, top 5 and all this stuff. He was doing really well. And then Ray was like, oh, I've started this organisation. We've got clients like DJ Target, Dev from Radio 1, Damian Marley, Stephen Marley. I want you to be my business partner in it. So like, it was a combination of all that.
Yeah.
And then, 2012, Mobo's where he had done some work for Mobo, creating something which led the city council, who I'd never had a relationship with before until that point, to say, we're thinking about moving on from Matthew Street. We want to do something differently. Have you got any ideas? Right. Which led to me presenting ideas, which led to me ended up being the curator of Liverpool International Music Festival. So there was what I was saying is there was a lot of stuff around that time that led to it. Do you know what I mean? That led to, so I don't think LIMF was my step out. I think maybe locally it put me, it gave me a little bit of more visibility. Yeah. But I think, the work was done before and will be done after.
But the point about it is that it's a project that you nurtured and it has grown into the LIMF Academy. Yeah, so, tell us a little bit about the LIMF Academy.
Well, when I started doing LIMF, so LIMF was like, okay, you've got Matthew Street Festival, which 300,000 people used to come to Liverpool. It was the biggest free music event in the whole of Europe. And the city decided, and the leader at the time was behind it a lot, Joe Anderson, was like, we want to do something that's a bit more credible, because Matthew Street was based mostly based on the honouring the Beatles, and it was like 90% tribute bands, if not 95%. Yeah. And you know what Liverpool's like? Liverpool's a very proud music city, because during the decades from the 50s, it's at this very avant-garde, these avant-garde music scenes. So you had Merseybeat. Merseybeat was like a scourge. It was a youth culture phenomenon. Like, they were all jazz clubs. The Cavern was a jazz club, essentially. Yeah. So then, Merseybeat teenagers coming in leather jackets, etc., was a big thing. Then you have the punk scene. And they're turning against what the Beatles and Merseybeat was, because maybe that was a bit pop, or maybe so they're doing their own thing. And so it's again, the whole Button Street thing, Probe Records, Eric's, etc., etc. You move on later, you get into the house, you get into the farm, and all that type of music. It's like almost like electronic bandy stuff, but it's quite, and obviously the farm and other bands at the time done well. Then you've got Cream. Got house music, which is then subversive culture in its own right. Cream was the biggest house music club in the whole country. Do you know what I mean? So we've always booked these trends, even when, the Laws and the Zootons and all that was quite different. Even though it was popular music, it was quite different. So it seemed odd that you've got Liverpool's preeminent music festival, most visible music festival, without any representation of that. Yeah. So when Joe decided to change it up, and they put me in that role, it was almost like, what would it look like? And that's when I was like, okay, well, we need to have a lot more ambition with the music artists we're going with. So rather than Matthew Street was all like antisocial behaviour and £100,000 police clean up and police this and all that, and it was like, that's not what music's about. No. If you put on a quality music event, people will behave because they'll want to be at the quality music event. So it was okay, we know there's audience that are segmented, and we know that's the way the world was then, right? Because bear in mind, we are iTunes-esque around then, but we're not Spotify world. So people don't pick and choose at the moment. Yeah. The majority of people are like, I like rock. I like thing. So if you chart how LIMF developed, and we'll get to the LIMF Academy in a sec, but the way I done it at the beginning was it was separated. So we had something called summer camp. So year one of LIMF, we had summer camp in the Baltic area, which was like the kind of arty, muso types. Then we had on the waterfront, we had what was the band? What were they called? Little Mix. We had JLS. We had the Vamps. Oh, right, yeah. So we had the pop stuff for the younger kids there. Then in the park, we had the cultural stuff. So we had Damian Marley. We had Portico Quartet. We had all that stuff. So it was like, in the park was like, and Soul to Soul with the full set. There, bro. No, but I'm just saying, no, but what I was saying was, and Rebecca Ferguson, people but what I was saying that was more like a little bit of everything, but it was, so we done it like that anyway, and then we had loads of, like, we had a gallery on the waterfront. It was like 5 weeks. But it was like we segmented the audience to almost go, there's something for everyone. But my whole aim was, if they let me hang around long enough, was I'd bring it all together. Because I think music's attitudinal. I'd never felt it was about race, genre. It's attitudinal. So I'd look at like Six Music as a model. Like, to some degree, Six Music's about the audience's belief in what music represents. So they can play Public Enemy and they can play The Strokes, or they can play these records together. So I mentioned mesh culture before. I was already talking about that 5 years before. And then iTunes proved it, because people are going, I'll have that one track from Eminem, and I'll have that one track from Alicia Keys, and I'll have that one track from Paul McCartney. You pick and choose what you want. So I was like, why couldn't a music festival be more about the attitude of it? And I was like, and the basis of it is Liverpool. So all I have to do is sit on a bus and listen to what people are talking about. Yeah. And we were talking about house music, we were talking about reggae, we were talking about, so I was always like, okay, I know we're gonna get to a point. If LIMF can stay here long enough and I can be in this space long enough, we'll get to a point where we'll have a Nile Rodgers before a Sigma, and we got to that point in 2019. So that was the first thing I wanted to do, really ambitious and really curate a statement of Liverpool as a contemporary music city, not a museum, a contemporary music city, because sometimes we talk about Liverpool always in the past. I was like, I want people to be able to come. I mean, not like the BME, where it's like... Well, that's all part of the mix, and music tourism is important, but what I'm saying is, we've got music tourism, we've got the history, we've got the museums, we've also got real life. So if you come to Liverpool to go to the Walk Art Gallery or the Museum of Liverpool Life or whatever it's called on the waterfront, you go to it and you see what Liverpool was like in the past, but you get to experience Liverpool now as you go around the streets. So that's all I wanted to do with music. I wanted to go, we might come for the International Beatles Week or you might come and go to see the Cavern. But if you can come during LIMF, you'll also see a contemporary take, which doesn't ignore the past. It just stands with the past on the shoulder. What's the say on the coin? On the shoulders of giants. Like, it would stand on the top and go, okay, we've come from punk, da, 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 da. So that's why every year I was very keen that LIMF had, like, it would be themed around something that had come before.
Yeah.
So, like, one year we done it, the Summer of Love. So I took that theme and went, okay, what were the great summers in music? Oh, hip hop was a great summer. Slick Rick, da 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 da. But then the
Like Will
Beatles,
Smith?
the Beatles were there. I wish I could have got. Actually, there's a story there, but that's another day.
Yeah.
So I was keen to always make sure it was grounded in it, but we'd have this, as I say, a really ambitious contemporary music festival, and that we'd include as many people as possible.
Yeah.
So I commissioned quite a lot of stuff to people who would do good work week in, week out. So then the second part was, it upset me when I read, and obviously I was on that point, is like, there's people who come from the city who done well in music that felt the city didn't have anything to do with it, right?
Yeah.
So if you were a new artist who was coming up and trying to get your music heard, you know, it might be, you know, BBC introducing at the time was probably early days, but you might go, oh, I got played a little bit on local radio, and then someone at Radio 1 found me, and now I'm big, and now I'm touring. So you would have no affinity with the city. You wouldn't feel like the city, you owe the city. And one thing I said in my initial presentation was, that will never happen again, right? LIMF's got a duty to support new talent and be a part of their story. So there'll be some new talent that is on the edge that we could put as part of the music festival in the park or wherever at stages were. But let's try to also create something where we develop new talent. And the model, strangely enough, for the LIMF Academy was just what I was doing with Urbeatz.
Yeah.
You get talent, you develop the talents, you put resource behind them, you launch them into the space. If they do well, it's great. If they
You
don't
had a
do
lot
well,
of
you
diverse
develop them.
artists as well.
Yeah. So what I've done with the academy is go, okay, well, what that look like where the city's behind it. So
Yeah.
now you've got clout, whereas I was just doing Urbeatz, like, you know, we had the studio set up, coast recording, and we tried to ship them whenever, or ship the music whenever. But I'm saying, with the academy, I was like, imagine what a year-long system. Imagine if Culture Liverpool's behind it, the Mayor's behind it, then I can go to PRS Foundation or PRS for Music, all these national, and see what they can do. And we've got the festival, so we can profile them at the festival. So it just built like that. And the more and more we went with it, it was like, it become, I suppose, a crown jewel for the city,
Yeah.
because it doesn't take much resource, but it has a big impact.
But it also matters as you being at the top of that food chain in a way, because, you know, like in moving like along, you know, more towards the present, where we got the Liverpool City Region Group, and we had that panel thing that you had with the new mayor Joe Anderson on racism and everything, and that wouldn't have happened if somebody like you weren't in that belief of representation and the importance of these, I don't know, things being heard. What do you think about that?
Yeah,
I know you don't want to take responsibility, but I'm just saying
Nah,
you were
nah.
part of those projects.
Yeah, no, I will take, you know, I'll take responsibility for my part. I think if you look at everything I've done, to me, it has always been about people who, some people have a view, or the privileged few would have a view that that group wouldn't have a chance,
Yeah.
right? So it's always like, not the misfit. I'll never say that, because that's not true. But like, if you're making artist and you're from the north of north of the UK, or you're in, say, or in Liverpool, or you're just outside of London, you're outside the bubble. So you are facing an uphill struggle to get into the music industry, because the music industry is London based. So to do the academy, to me, just balances the scales a little bit. When I work with black music artists, or black artists who make black music,
Yeah.
right, both sides, I've always tried to look at it from again, it's not the most supported. How can we make the best of the situation? So, you know, that's always been there. You know, I've worked with artists from, you know, in the jazz space. You know, Zamvola, who I managed at one point, who came through the academy, he was doing like fusion jazz stuff. Do you know what I mean? To get him signed to Universal, get him a deal where he had total creative control, and to see what he'd done on a national and international scale in such a short time, it was always about doing that. So the LIMF Academy is the same. Liverpool against racism, it was the mayor's idea. She wanted to do something on the back of the football. And what happened a couple of years ago, what could it be? I was round the table and I went, well, what about this? Let's be ambitious with it. Let's not just do a music performance. Let's do a
What
curated
did you have around
conference.
the table? Like, were they like music
No,
artists?
no,
Or?
because it wasn't a music thing. It was around the table was key people from Culture Liverpool who would be the ones who would execute the event, and they were all for it. So like the want to do it was there, and that's the most important thing. If Joe Anderson, the old mayor, or Joanne Anderson, or Claire McColgan, or whatever, if they didn't want to do these things, my thinking about it would be irrelevant. It takes the team at Culture Liverpool who managed the event to execute it. Like LIMF, could have been 160 staff on. I'm one person. Do you know what I mean? So I'm never gonna make it like it was. But what I'm saying is the whole to have that opening and have that conversation and go, look, I've got a creative idea of how we can tackle racism. Like, what's Liverpool's stance? And when they go, okay, tell us it, and I can draw it out, because that idea took me 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So to be able to explain it and then go, okay, it's never been done in the world, Joe, but we trust what you've got. And obviously it worked. We've done the conference, we've done the music festival, we've done a youth event, we partnered, we got the city to rally around it. It never happened in the world, ever before. It's never happened. No city's made a statement against racism, ever. And we've done it here first. So to me, it's liberating to get it, but I know that it weren't just me. It was the fact that people were open to it. And then we were able to do it. But all that stuff, everything that connects, everything, Power Up, which I do for PRS Foundation, I'm doing some work with Google at the moment. It's always about like these underrepresented, underserved voices that have got something to say or got something to contribute or deserve a shot. Let's do something. Let's build a program, design a program or design a structure that will give those people who I resonate with, nothing to do with race. It could be working class. It could be people who are not from the epicenter, whatever. Let's give a chance to see what they can do. And usually what I've seen is when that chance is given, we do all right. LIMF became one of the best festivals in the country in 4 or 5 years. Do you know what I mean?
So is that what Power Up is about? Because, I mean, I know that's like the major thing that you're involved with. I mean, like, and when you say the PRS Foundation, we all talk about PRS, right?
Yeah, so PRS for Music is the collecting company that you know, but they have a PRS Foundation, that's the separate organisation, but PRS for Music, it's like a charitable wing for them, but it's a separate organisation. So PRS Foundation support new music and new music creators from across the country and organisations that support music creators. So they've been a partner with the LIMF Academy since 2016 maybe. Yeah. So they've supported us being able to support artists. They support loads of organisations. They'll put money into like Sound City to help them put a new band stage and etc. But they support loads. So I've had a relationship with PRS Foundation for a while, and I got wind of them developing something on the back of Blackout Tuesday, around supporting black music creators and industry professionals from across the country working in any genre who are hitting a glass ceiling. Because their feeling was like, there's loads of early stage stuff.
Yeah.
But when you get to the industry, you've been working at a label and you're doing really great work, but somehow you're just not getting that promotion, or you're a music artist and somehow you're not getting on TV, even though you've got all the numbers to back it up, like, or you are a creative working in music generally, but maybe you're a filmmaker and you just haven't had that. Like the whole point of it was like there needs to be some intervention at that level, because if we can get more people that understand that demographic and understand real equality and equity at a higher level, then it'll change the industry. So I got wind of it. I was like, oh, that's really interesting. I'll be happy to help. It just so happens the conversation was more about, no, we'll be interested in you potentially being involved in developing it. So there's two founders, Joe Franklin, who's the CEO of PRS Foundation, and a guy called Ben Winter, who was at the PRS Foundation at the time, but is now an organisation called AIM. So they'd done a lot of the work, and then they brought me in to basically say, okay, now we need to activate it. Let's put some like meat on the bones. Let's speak to more people. Let's shape it. So I got involved first and foremost just to develop it. It was like an R&D piece of work, and then that rolled into like, we want you to be senior manager. So I presented and interviewed for both parts of the consultancy, and I've ended up doing that. We're going into our third year, but it's literally, it's about giving people a chance that don't deserve it. So I'll use an example. There's a rock band, 2 females in a rock band called Nova Twins, black girls, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's an anomaly in itself, right?
Right.
Not from London, or not from that anomaly. So gender, race, genre. They're nominated for, I think, 2 Brits. They were on our program first year.
Wow.
And our thing was we give them a grant, we give them support, mentor and all this. They got this wraparound thing. Not saying it's because of Power Up, but you can see what intervention does at the right time. You know, we have people like Deneo on. We've helped him like develop his business. We've, you know, again, every year we work with 40. So we're on our 80. We've got, you know, our partners are YouTube Music, Spotify, Beggars Group, which is XL Records, etc., etc.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
there's people who've got behind this who are really supporting it. And it is fundamentally to go, look, we need to give people a fair shot. Because that's all everyone wants, isn't it? A fair shot. No one wants a leg up. No one wants to be above.
Yeah.
Everyone just wants a fair shot.
Well,
And
wants
that's what
to
it's about.
believe in them and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
So this leads us to like the present, where you have this weekend, I believe, the open.
You're going to call it hot sauce?
What?
No, that's what you're going to call it, hot sauce.
All right, I did that off camera. Thanks. Oh, the open source. Tell me about the open source, because this is really phenomenal, but it's happening this weekend.
Yeah, so open source. The Open Source Music Conference is a part of LIMF Academy. And the conference, and I'll go back in a minute to explain like how I've kind of came up with the concept, but like the conference is just an opportunity for music creators and budding industry professionals to come and learn from some of the best brains in the music industry. And we're touching on things like, you know, artistic expression and authenticity and how you deliver that. We're talking about mental well-being. We're talking about social media. We're talking about optimizing your data so you can actually grow your audience. We're talking about how you do it being independent. We're talking about how you collect your money better, how you raise money, like a full 360 of what the music industry looks like now for people
like
coming
classes
through.
or
Yeah, the
panels
master classes, panels, presentations, Q&As, etc., etc. So literally we got people from Spotify, like Brian Johnson, who's coming, he's like head of Artist International for Spotify. I think it's the highest point you can get at.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? He's from Liverpool originally. He's come back.
Really?
He's doing this. Sarah Stennett, who started, she started an organisation called First Access years ago. She's from Liverpool originally. Managed Pussycat Dolls, Rita Ora, Zayn Malik when he came out One Direction, Iggy Azalea. She dealt with that whole Little Peep. Like, it's phenomenal. First time she's been asked to come and speak in the city, and she jumped at it. Like, I spoke to her last Thursday or Friday, and she was like, "Yeah," and we announced her straight away. So like, it's top level.
A private event, paid event.
Yeah,
or?
it's the tickets are £5, but like that includes your lunch. We've got like goodie bags, so everyone will get a t-shirt, a bag, a little bound book with a little bit of branding on that you can think. So it's not really. But again, if you know there are people that may be a struggle for, and if so, get in touch with me and we'll work something out.
Where is it?
It's at the Spine Building, Islington.
Oh, the new Spine
building. Yeah, top floor. See the whole city, panoramic view. But my point being is like the open source thing is going back to what I said before about giving everyone the tools and opportunity.
Yeah.
So the concept of open source, not open source, but open source, I've changed the right wording on it. Open source is the idea that you give to people the tools that they can amend and change information and technology so they can use it for themselves to do whatever. So open source is like you get MySpace was open source. Facebook is. They give you can add your own picture, you can change it, but there's a little construct, right?
Yeah.
So that concept I wanted to apply. I've applied all like the last 15, 20 years to anything to do with talent development. It's like, look, we're going to show you how to do it, so you have the power. It's not about us. It's not about me going, I know everyone in the industry, you've got to come through me. It's me going, actually, you've got all the context now here. So that's how the academy's been. That's how everything's been. It's like, oh, so I bring in a speaker. If I bring you to speak, I'll go to here's Chase's email address. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I wouldn't go, you've got to go through me. So that's what this is about. I'm bringing all these people. We're bringing all these people to come and speak. Conference. They're going to share their ideas. People talking about NFTs and all this stuff, crypto and all that. So you guys have the information, right? And then you can do with what it is. So the reason why I called it Source, and you get this from like a hip hop thing, is like, not only should it track better online, but the idea of like, you know, that person's got source, they got cool, they got sharing it. Like, so it's like open source. So that's the idea behind it. But essentially it's a music conference, and a brand which is about just sharing information, sharing ideas, and connecting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, listen, man. I know you didn't give us a lot of your time today and everything, and I saw you watching your watch. But like, I have right down here. You wanted to say something about Eurovision, or did you think something was about Eurovision,
No,
or
I
what do
know.
you think about Eurovision
We'll
being
do a
in
thing.
Liverpool?
I think it's good for the city. I think anytime we attract stuff that no other city in the country has got, that's a bonus. I think it feeds into people going, this is
Yeah, I
UNESCO
think we're
City of
getting the
Music.
Special Olympics as well, aren't
Yeah,
we?
well, this is what I'm saying. I think Liverpool's done really well, and I think it does do really well. I think my thing with it is we've got to utilise it so it's not people coming here, like the BBC and whatever, loads of people coming and just going, bang, we're here, watching a show, and then we go.
Yeah.
What's the legacy? What's the long tail of it? You know, we've had 2008 with European capital culture, and we see there was years of positivity that ran off the back of it. Is this another moment? If it is, what does it look like for the likes of yourselves doing this? What does it look like for the work that I'm doing and what the LCR Music Board's doing and the Black Music Action Group's doing and the Gender Equality Board and what does it mean for those who are studying music in the universities and LIPA and community college? What does that mean for the artist who's creating YouTube videos in his room? What does it mean for us all, the creative community? So I think
Well, what does it
that's
mean, yeah?
well, that's the I weren't involved in getting Eurovision here.
No, I know, but
So
I mean,
do you know what I mean?
just
So
in
I'm
your
saying
opinion.
that's the question. That's the question I'm asking. I think that's got to be an important demand. I was going to say ask, but a demand of the city to say, look, we're all to some degree sacrificing. Like the money's got to come from somewhere, hasn't it? Right. So we all pay our taxes. We all pay rates and rates. So somewhere online, we're all paying for this, right? What do we get as a legacy of this? How does that impact us in 5 years? Where are we all better? Now, if we are better, it's worth the investment. If we're in a worse place because we've overstretched ourselves, well, that's problematic because we should be going up now. And we know what's happened. We're still one of the worst cities in the country that gets hit by cuts from national governments. We know we're in, a recession. We know the cost of living's going up. So we know we're in a tough time anyway.
Yeah.
Is this going to actually help us? And if it's not going to help us directly, how can it indirectly help? And that's the thing. And that's to be seen, do you know what I mean? But I think we've got great leadership. Joanne is a wonderful person first and foremost, but she's a hard-working, strategic mayor. So, like, I have confidence that from a leadership perspective, those conversations will be had, and let's just hope that we're all included enough to be able to we do get something from it, and it's not just a party in Liverpool. Because I do believe as a city, we've got to start thinking about what does this all look like in 25, 30, 40 years, because really that's what we need to be focused on. We can't just focus on the next big blip of event that happens in the city. We've got to start thinking longer term, I think.
Yeah. Well, I know, like, I was hoping that I would, like, expose him with some kind of controversy or something like that, or, wanted me to ask hard questions. But I just found it all fascinating, just, you running down your history and your involvement in the city, making sure that representation is at the top of your list, because it makes it at the top of everyone's list. And I mean, I wish you well on all your endeavors that is going on. Didn't get to really talk too much about on record, but I mean, listen, these guys got websites all over the place.
We'll come back. Let's just do part 2 down the line.
Yeah, man, part two, bro. You know what I'm saying? But listen, it's really been a pleasure. Yeah, it shouldn't have been so long before we got together, but I really want to thank you for coming out. Please, if you can still buy tickets, I'm pretty sure they're available on Skittle or somewhere or something like that.
Ticket quarter. But if you go to limfacademy.com, LIMF there's a button there, open source, click it, and there'll be tickets there. Yeah.
I mean, despite the famous names that he's mentioned, it's just I think it sounds like a really powerful event to take place, and you don't do too many of those, so that would be really great. And everything, the open source and stuff like that this weekend and everything. So this has been Yaw Owusu. I'm Chase Johnson Lynch, your host for the Liverpool Community Podcast, and for now, we out of here.